All right, we're here, my outdoor worm bin, and the last time we were in here, it was a little chaotic because I had my nieces over here helping me out, and they did a fantastic job. They did put a lot of orange peels in, and here is one of them right here. When we got in here, I kind of smelt a citrusy smell, so they're getting broken down by the worms, and that's good. What we did before we were in here was we took around the edges and we sifted some out, and I have about 343 worms in here that we're going to do a time lapse at the end. So another interesting thing that my nieces put in here was some corn salad, or at least that's what they called it, but it was corn husks. And right here, I'm seeing some dampness and a bunch of worms. So let's kind of go underneath. And I think that is what we are seeing right in here. Yep, let me pull it out. So lots of fibery corn husks, and there's some worms right there, kind of taking what I think is the flower end of the corn. And it's very fibrous and it's pulling apart. So very interesting. Now it is very damp in here, and that is because I water it in. It is summertime here in Florida and it gets very rainy. So the bottom can be damp, but the top sometimes can be dry. So I went in there, I think it was yesterday, and I saw a lot of dryness. So I just watered in some water, and check out all those worms right there. They're really enjoying the dampness and whatever food is there. And the reason with this bin that I can water in is because it is made out of two 20-gallon fabric pots, and it drains right out. So I never have to worry about the moisture in here. And again, just lots of great worms in this feeding zone. And it's been 15 days since we were in here, so I didn't expect to see a whole lot of food left. And it looks like they're into what was a lot of, or maybe not a lot of, but a good portion of coffee grounds. And also this is a banana peel that we put in here. Now, besides the corn husks, we also had some avocados, we had some strawberries, Emer's leftover apple, and some tomatoes, broccoli, and I think we put in multiple banana peels. They kind of put a lot of stuff in all at once, and this is a tomato, so I wasn't able to follow it completely. And yeah, there we go. Now, something else we're finding is these kind of palmetto bugs. I don't want to say the other name for them, but because it rains, we will get a lot of these kinds of critters in here. I'll tell you, those are not my favorite kind of insects, but they actually are pretty helpful for a worm bin. So check it out. Just lots of worms all throughout, and they are loving the moisture. Let's come from the outside in, and I was finding a lot of castings on the outside, and holy mackerel, I can't even believe how many worms we have in here. I would say we're probably somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000. Do a little experiment where I count out worms and then I weigh them so I can just get a rough estimate. And maybe one of the next couple of times in here, I'll just dump this whole thing out and kind of sort the worms out and weigh them, and maybe we can find a good estimate. But check it out, just every handful, worms all throughout. Very cool. All right, so let's see if we can find any more corn husks besides what we're finding right there. And I would say the worms like them. They're all throughout them. So although it seems like they're a pretty slow food, I think it's a-okay to say put your corn husks in. Just like anything, I would put them in moderation because I don't know if they're going to heat up or if they're, can make them bend ferment. So I always, when I'm trying to put new foods in, just put a little bit in. Check out that little worm ball. I love it. All right, let's come over here. Mango seeds. Let me go ahead and aerate this out, and then we'll go ahead and put our next feeding in. We've got some interesting stuff. I've got a acorn squash. I'm going to put that whole thing in here. We also have some natural bedding that I've never tried that we're going to put in. Oh, check that out. That is the pumpkin stem from forever ago. Let me see if it is brittle. Let's see if I can kind of break it. That part is hard. This part is kind of brittle. That's about all I'm going to do because I don't want to hurt any of the worms that are on there. So this right here is an avocado pit, and they have kind of hollowed it out a little bit. A worm right in there, but it's really brittle. So they've got the avocado shell, and then they go through and eat up the seed itself right there in the middle. Very cool. So let's start with some bedding right here in the middle, and it's going in dry, but we're going to put some good food in here that's going to get it wet, and I'm also going to water it in. And then we'll put all the remnants of the food that we had in here, and I may actually kind of leave some of the corn husks from the center out, almost like a star, because they are kind of getting moist and just kind of messy, nasty. Do that just like that. Put just a little bit more of our shredded bedding in there. And then check this out. I've talked about it before. I do not have a whole lot of leaves that I can put in my worm bin because we have a lot of pine trees. We have a lot of palm trees. So this is some pine needles that I'm going to put in here. I don't think I've ever put it in the worm bin purposefully, but I want to see how it does in here. I'm hoping it can get moist and then kind of break down and the worms can get to it. But in general, it's just not something I think would be easy for the worms to get to. I also use this a lot for mulch. So I always have great ideas for how we're going to prepare our acorn squash, but I ran out of time and it started to rot here. So against my better judgment, I'm going to put this in this outdoor worm bin. I'm not too afraid of the heat getting it, even though it's outdoors and we're in Florida, because I keep it under the shade. And because it's against the ground, it really helps to moderate the temperature. But we're going to go ahead and put this right here in the center. And I've put a lot of cuts in it, so there's a lot of entryways for the worms to get to it. I'm also going to put in some other food that I know that they're going to like and that they eat. This is kind of fast food. And then this banana peel is a little bit on the slower side, but we'll put that in there. Not a whole lot, but enough so if they don't go for this right away or it heats up, they can eat some other food. So now we're going to go ahead and go in with some worm chow. And this is just some expired grains that I had in my pantry, some oats and a lot of different kind of almond and coconut flour. Just another food source for them and a way for me to get rid of what I have in the pantry. And we'll also come in with just a little bit of coffee grounds. Again, another way for me to get some nitrogen and some other nutrients into the garden through my worms. And then finally, we'll go in with one of the worms' favorite things to eat. And I didn't know this until I did a little time lapse with it, but pulverized eggshell grit is one of the first things that the worms attack once I put it in the worm bin. Crazy. But they have a gizzard and that helps them to break up their food and make it smaller, kind of like a bird. And then finally, real quick, I wanted to show Peggy over at Peggy Helbling's garden, which you've got, what color my Plumeria flowers were. White with a little bit of yellow in the center. All right, so in with some more shredded cardboard. I always like to put in a lot of bedding every time I feed. Helps to boost the volume and the worms eat both the food and the bedding that we put in here. So let's go ahead and bury this up very carefully, and then we're gonna set up for our time lapse. So here we go with the 343 worms, and when I put them down, you'll get a kind of a guesstimate of what a group of worms looks like and how many there are, so you can guess how many you have in your bin. Most of them have squiggled down, just a couple little pockets of worms continuing to make their way down. And we'll add a little bit more bedding for volume, and by a little I kind of mean a lot. So in we go with that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some more rainwater on here to help moisten up all the new bedding we have in here. And because I gave kind of a pretty good concentration of food and that acorn squash right in the middle, every couple days I'm going to come in here and take down the flaps and just put my hand on it to see if it's warming up. And if it is, I'll put some ice right on the top or maybe even some frozen water bottles. So I hope you're all having a great day. I hope your worm bins are doing well. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.